Have you ever wondered what was going on in this country when it comes to Donald Trump versus Joe Biden? I think we can both agree that the media is completely biased. Any bit of information that comes out is manipulated to get more eyeballs or push an agenda in one direction. But what about social media? And how does that come into the picture? Well, we've got some very interesting evidence from multiple employees who work at Twitter saying how they're baking the actual algorithm to suppress people's free speech and to manipulate the outcome of what is happening. And then we're going to dive into our Twitter rankings to understand who is actually winning versus what the media purports as who is winning. So, with that being said, if this is your first time here, what's good? Welcome. And for those of you who are returning, it's good to frickin' see you. Let's get into it. So we ranked the candidates on Twitter on 4 separate rankings with the total number of followers they've gained over the last 30 days, the total amount of work they're putting in, and I'll explain that in a moment, and how many people are actually talking about them in terms of the hashtag usage around the candidate, specifically relating to the 2020 election. And then the last one factor is the total amount of search volume for each one of these candidates to see what people are searching for. So before we get into any of that, let's take a look at Real Clear Politics, where they aggregate the polls from different news organizations or different organizations, we'll call them. This is Fox, ABC. I don't want to call it news because that's kind of misleading, because I don't think that they actually put out the news, right? It is a twisted version of reality that they call the news, but I don't personally believe that it is the news. I haven't owned a television since 2009 because I knew that the media was just a complete joke in 2009. We're 2020 now. It's been a joke for quite a long time. YouGov, which is The Economist, CNBC, et cetera, and they all have Biden leading. But check this out. Right here, this says the sample size. So what does that mean? That just means how many people these polls or surveys talk to. This poll from ABC, which the media will report on as being representative of what the collective nation of 330 million Americans think. Think about that for just 1 second. This poll comes out. The media will say this piece of data represents what the entire nation is thinking, right? To try to get an understanding of who's going to win. This poll from ABC, and I think it's ABC and the Wall Street Journal or something, 673 people. 673 people were talked to. So you just went to your Facebook page and you messaged fucking 675 people and asked, hey, are you going to vote for Trump or are you going to vote for Biden? And then the media takes that and reports as that being representative of what the entire nation thinks. This is not a joke. I'm laughing about it because this is how reality is. That people actually think 675 people is going to represent what the collective thinks, and that doesn't even include the different biases that are involved. They're making fucking phone calls. Who has time to pick up a robo-spam call and talk to a human being on the phone? I have personal things that I have better do in my life than pick up a robocall from a spammer. That is very, 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 very low on my priority list of things to do. I don't even pick up the phone when my family calls me or friends call me. I have better things to do. So who do you think is going to actually pick up the phone? Well, people who are don't have anything better to do with their time. Potentially old people, potentially unemployed people. So you're getting a very biased group of people, not people who are working, who actually have a life, who have a family, who have things to do with their time other than waste it talking to a spammer. So you're going to get huge hugely biased results. Just ridiculous. And that doesn't include the framing, different types of framing bias, all sorts of other biases that go into how the questions are asked. Then there's the stratification. So that's a fancy way of saying in statistics that I'm going to get this pile of data and this is reality, and then I'm going to try to manipulate this data to fit nicely into reality. That's literally what it does. You take the data and then you manipulate it to try to fit reality. If it doesn't fit reality, you just got to manipulate it a little bit more, right? Like, yeah, look, there you go. That's literally what it does. And none of that's mentioned. But what is actually going on here? So we know the media is completely biased, but what about the social media, right? Well, this is a video from, and by the way, this is an awesome site if you guys ever want to find out like the other side of things that like the media will never ever talk about. So this is from Project Veritas, and if you look, undercover video, Twitter engineer to ban a way of talking. So there's not like free speech, right? Are we in America, or has this been going on a long time? I don't know, because I thought that was part of what America was. Maybe the key word there is was. Who uses social media too, right? The people who are, we'll call them 55 and younger, right? Because a lot of people use social media in general, different platforms. Through shadow banning algorithms to censor opposing political opinions. So these are just bullet points from the article. So this is from Terry Pierce, or Pure. He's a Twitter engineer. Explains shadow banning. Says it's going to ban a way of talking. This is what they were developing in 2018. Former software engineer, whatever this person's name is, on shadow banning, because this person has they're a undercover reporter and they have a camera, and they just think no one is engaging with their content, when in reality, no one is seeing it, because they're banning it so that nobody's other's opinion than who they want to show is going to show. So not only is the media trying to manipulate what is going on, all the social platforms are. We covered Facebook yesterday and how they're deliberately labeling people who support Trump as terrorists. You can go check out that video right over here. Make sure you press that subscribe button and that bell notification so YouTube can notify you tomorrow when we release our Google and our YouTube rankings based upon the search volume for each one of these candidates over time to understand the trends with their data. So there's a tremendous amount of censorship here. Former Twitter content review agent, so this person's reviewing content that's released as flagged for some reason, explains banning process. It was a pro-Trump thing and anti-Trump thing. I banned his whole account. It's at your discretion. When asked if the banning process has unwritten rules, Noré adds a lot of unwritten rules. It was never written. It was more said. Like you're supposed to do that. And this one's kind of scary, right? Because this person, their job title is policy manager for Twitter trust and safety. Oh, Linda, we're trying to downrank shitty people to not show up. This is from a policy fucking manager at Twitter. We're trying to downrank shitty people to not show up. And they're working on that right now. Shadow banning. This is in quotes. To be used to stealthily target political views. And he said, that is a thing. Censorship. Certain political viewpoints to be automated via machine learning. So they're creating machine learning, which you can use a neural network, and it's a little bit more complicated than that, but you can use basically machine learning to censor people so that their viewpoints don't surface on Twitter and they don't get shown to people. This is from this is from Twitter direct messaging engineer. On machine learning algorithms, you have like 5,000 words to describe a redneck. The majority of them are Republicans. So they're even explaining how they're doing this. And you're just like, well, I have no idea what's going on here, right? They're trying to manipulate society in the way that they want and not allow for freedom of speech, not allow for people to actually have discussions around things. Why do you think there's so much animosity that's going on right now? Because every news organization is doing this. We just covered Facebook. We know they're doing it. Twitter's doing it. We're going to cover more as this goes on, so make sure you press that subscribe button and the bell notification. Now, what we're looking at right here is a graph of voter turnout from 1970 or 1775 and onward. So we can see, if I'll zoom in right here, if this will let me, and you can see right here this giant spike was 2018 midterm elections. So there wasn't anything special going on. It wasn't like a giant election. But the turnout for 2018 was the highest it's been since way back. I think it was in 1914. It was the same time they had the same amount of turnout for the midterm election. What's going on here? Right? Interesting. Where do all these people that are 55 and below spend the majority of their time? On 7 apps, right? You got Facebook, and you got YouTube, and you got Instagram, and you've got Twitter, and you've got Snapchat. All these big platforms, right? And we know they're systematically censoring people who don't believe the things that they believe. So this was 2016, and we just see a tiny little bit of an uptick. 2016 seems like a century ago. Things are a lot different today. The expectation and predictions from Pew Research and other organizations is that we're going to have record turnout. If we have any near amount of jump in voter turnout like they did in the midterm elections, we're going to have something that's going to have the highest turnout from back before 1900. And where these people are getting their information are platforms that are openly biased in censoring information so that the public cannot get the truth. That's why we do these. That's why I do this research. That's why I got rid of my TV in 2009. Because I'd rather have the truth and not feed myself garbage. The first thing you can do, stop watching any fucking news. Complete waste of your time. Complete waste of time. Second thing, share this video with somebody. So where do we get the data from the Twitter rankings, right? We went into 4 different factors. We've got the number of followers, the total amount of work they're putting in, their hashtags, and the search volume. So we use a site called Social Blade, super interesting site, most commonly used for vanity purposes, but from people on different social media and how they're ranking and whatnot, but also a very good tool for research. So we put in the Twitter account for Donald Trump and Joe Biden, and then we went down and we tracked the total number of followers that each one of them gained. So we can see here that Donald Trump gained 1.5 plus million new followers over the last month. So let's take a look at this here. We've got Donald Trump gaining 1.5 plus million and Joe Biden gaining about 750,000. So we have twice as many people following Donald Trump over the last 30 days than Joe Biden. That's interesting because I thought the media said that he was more popular. Joe Biden was. So why is there 2-to-1 in the other direction? Because these over here show about a 20% lead or so. 15 to 25% lead for Joe Biden, but when we look at the actual data, it points in a different direction. Why is that? Well, we just touched on some of the reasons why. Now media, that is a gauge of how much work is actually putting in place. Now, when you think about it for a second, what did we just do? We went through and we showed the blatant censorship. We know the media, the media's North Star is not like the truth, objectivity, accuracy of information, and any of that. So there's very little ways for people, unless they're going to actually dig, to find accurate and truthful and objective information. So if you're constantly getting suppressed you have to work much harder because you're behind the 8 ball, right? So we want to understand how hard somebody's actually working. And we can see here that over the last 30 days, Trump has put out 745 tweets. So if you look at these, Joe Biden has done about 206 versus 750. So more than 3 times as hard. Trump is putting in that much more effort to get past the censorship, to get past the media bias, right? Now imagine if it was just half as much censorship, or the media only twisted every other story, right? Or tried to be objective when they were covering something. What a novel idea. And we get to see that the amount of work Biden's putting in, because the media is doing the work for him, he's actually decreasing the amount of tweets he's doing per month. Interesting. So we've done this 3 different times. You can check out each one of these where we cover a little bit different data here. But Joe Biden's actually decreased the amount of tweets he's done. So has Donald Trump. He went from over 1,000 down to 750. And then let's take a look at the next factor here. And this is actual hashtag usage. So this is the Biden 2020 hashtag or the Trump 2020 hashtag. So these are going to be individuals who are more than likely supporting their candidate, whether it is support or somebody who is, I don't know why somebody uses a hashtag if they're not supporting them, right? Because then you're just giving that person additional attention. But, and there's something called a familiarity bias. So the more that you choose to put something out there, the more just if somebody has a stock decision they have to make, like right away, they're going to choose the thing they're more familiar with. So in a certain sense, it's actually helpful. But we're going to use this as a gauge to understand how many people are actually talking about them. And it's going to have a bias more than likely to positivity in terms of who's actually supporting each one of these candidates, with a little bit of cloudiness because there's probably some people who just don't have anything better to do and they'll use the hashtag for Biden 2020, but they are actually supporting Trump, and they're use hashtag for Trump 2020, but they're actually supporting Biden. If we look at this, and this is only over a 5-minute time period because I didn't feel like counting for an hour. Over the last 5 minutes when I did this, 52 people had tweeted about Trump 2020. Versus Biden, there was 34. So a large increase in the term, not 2 to 1, but more like 1.75 tweets for Trump versus 1 tweet for Joe Biden. So he has more people talking about him as well in terms of the support for his 2020 election. Now, another interesting thing here, and this is the total amount of search volume. So this, we use a tool called Google Trends, and we search for Donald Trump Twitter and Joe Biden Twitter. This is on the web, which is represented through Google search volume. Google searches Google's the #1 site in the world, and their search engine is the #1 search engine in the world in terms of volume of searches that it handles every single day. And this is over the last 30 days. We can see that he's had 93% of all searches for these 2 terms, Joe Biden Twitter versus Donald Trump and Twitter. So this is a super cloudy number because there's probably people who consume other people's content that they don't like. I'm sure that's the case. Like, I don't have any time to do that. Like, I have better things to do with my time. But I know that there's definitely people out there who just don't have anything better to do with their time, and they love consuming people that they don't like. I don't get it either, but there's definitely people that I see doing that for whatever reason. But what is kind of interesting, we do have a little bit of a trend, just a smidgen of a trend here. We can see that Biden's gaining ground. He went from 5.26% of total search volume up to 6.45, then to 6.67. And this is based on millions and millions of data points. Again, same right here. If we take and we add up the total number of followers, right, we're at like 2.5 million total followers, 2.2 million, right? Versus this poll from ABC with 675 fucking respondents. 675 respondents. This is a joke. This is absolute farce. Now, if you support the truth, if you support actually spreading some type of objectivity and accuracy with what is coming out, and you don't support the utter complete censorship that is happening in the media in terms of how things are twisted and social media, take a moment and share this video with one specific person. Because if you share it with a bunch of people who don't agree with it, we're just looking to get one person who is going to get value out of it and see that there's actually a huge bias that's taking place right now. This 2020 election that's coming up is going to be very, very interesting. Don't forget to press that subscribe for the YouTube and Google search volume rankings for Donald Trump and Joe Biden. It's coming out tomorrow. So press that bell notification as well. If you guys want to jump over to Twitter and say what's good, link in the description. Appreciate you.